Talking muscles, talking gains, talking about swole and out of control. At least within the confines of what relates to my last video. But before we get both nitty and possibly equally gritty, let's go over the three muscle types: smooth, cardiac, and skeletal. Smooth muscle tissues are non-striated and typically associated with involuntary structures. As a quick reminder, I always think of them being involved with our tube-shaped bits, such as the GI tract, uterus, or vascular structures. Their biggest jobs are transport of objects through tubes, such as peristalsis or vasoconstriction. Cardiac muscle is easy to remember if you keep track of your prefixes. This tough and stubborn material makes up the bulk of a heart. Skeletal muscle are striated and cable-like. Typically the first image when thinking of muscles, these guys use bones as anchor points. Because of their job, skeletal muscle cells are incredibly long for a cell and contain multiple nuclei. The amount of mitochondria within also depends on what your body expects to be demanded of them. Like how a distance runner's muscles are packed with more mitochondria than those of a sprinter. The body's preparing for those muscles to rely more on aerobic respiration. Each of these classes are all about contraction or relaxation. It's their structural design that gives them a job, and motor neuron that tells them when to chill, when to freak out, or when to maintain a contraction. Taking a bit of a step back, we look back at the motor neuron, its action potential zipping down the axon to send a command to the muscle. Is it asking for the muscle to finish its third quarter projection analysis spreadsheets? Nope, it's about to toss some neurotransmitters at it. Mainly a mitochondria-produced compound known around the block as acetylcholine and its goofy partner glutamate. These guys fill the neuromuscular junction where chemoreceptors recognize and pick up the less than subtle hints tossed to their direction. Not all neurotransmitters are excitatory, as inhibitory end transmitters such as glycine decrease the odds of a neuron firing. Now, though the muscle cells are very long for a cell, skeletal muscle show distinct striation. This comes from them being divided into cooperating segments with organized fibers within, known as sarcomeres. Now it's time for some slightly meatier bits.
But Jim Jam, isn't just the myofibrils squeezing themselves like a great big hug?
Well, yes, but we're gonna get into the details anyways. If you're sticking around, you better know these two fellas, actin and myosin, the two key components of myofibrils. Actin isn't just like a microscopic rope. Nope, not just a rope. It's sort of the common name to a wider group of proteins that have a wide array of functions. But in the context of muscle filaments, we can think of them like a protein anchor wound into a cable made of tropomyosin, F-actin, and G-actin. Or as I like to call them, factin and gactin. Myosin fibers are like long bundles of tinier fibers that end in bulbous heads. These heads utilize ATP and a phosphate molecule to connect at locations on the actin fibers, creating connections called cross bridges, and physically pull them towards the M-line of the sarcomere. Once connected and pulled, ATP reattaches to the myosin head, causing it to release the actin and relax into a passive state. But what regulates this attach and detach style? Well, that's the power of my favorite metal, calcium. Normally, the tropomyosin and troponin keep the actin covered, in a sense, from the myosin heads. But when saturated with calcium ions, the troponin binds to the calcium ions, exposing the binding sites. The calcium, when not telling the fibers to panic, is stored in a great network called the sarcoplasmic reticulum. Remember those neurotransmitters we discussed earlier? It's these signals that give the command for T-tubules to disperse calcium to the sarcomeres. With calcium dispersed, all the sarcomeres contract their actin and myosin fibers, leading to that sweet muscle contraction. Next episode, we're talking about worms, moist little noodles, and what happens to them when they get too moist. Be sure to subscribe for more. Really helps out a poor little college student like me. I'll buy a coffee or something. That way, I won't have to resort to selling hobo organs again.